So in this video, I have some unfortunate news that I have to bring to you all. The state of Washington is now going to put in place the worst assault weapons ban that we have in the entire nation. So let's break this down and let's talk about this doozy. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think these types of assault weapons bans are clearly unconstitutional, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to one of the main supporters of this channel, which is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend that you consider getting some sort of legal protection. I use USCCA. In my opinion, they're the best. So if you're interested, you can check them out using the link down below. As I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we have to talk about something a little bit unfortunate. And really, it's going to be the horrible assault weapons ban that the state of Washington is now going to put in place. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down House Bill 1240, also Senate Bill 5265, and what this essentially aims to do and how it aims to prohibit the access to firearms, and specific firearms or so-called assault weapons going forward in the state of Washington. So when you first look at HB 1240, the first section of this bill outlines the general purpose of the law, and then the very next section outlines the variety of definitions which are important for the context of what this law will actually aim to do. I'm going to come back to the definition section in just a minute, but first we have to look at what the general law is attempting to do. What is it going to prohibit? And that's in Section 3. Section 3 is where you find the law and its prohibition on the purchase and the future sale of so-called assault weapons. It states, no person in the state may manufacture, import, distribute, sell, or offer for sale any assault weapon except as authorized in this section. So that is the general assault weapons ban language that's going to be in place through this bill. It's going to ban the future sale of so-called assault weapons. And so there are some small exemptions, primarily, of course, law enforcement and military are going to be exempted from this, but the average law-abiding person in the state of Washington is going to have to live under this outright ban on the purchase and sale of so-called assault weapons. So now that we've talked about the general prohibition on the sale going forward of so-called assault weapons, now it's important to jump back to the definition section and see what are they defining as so-called assault weapons. And you can find that in Section 2. In Section 2, one of the first things that you see in the bill is that it's going to create a list of makes and models that they are specifically naming as so-called assault weapons. Now, in this Washington bill, they have 65 expressly named firearms that will now be considered to be so-called assault weapons and therefore prohibited from being sold going forward. Even in this list, though, don't be deceived. It's just not 65 specific makes and models. It's even broader than that. There are broader bans even in this list because, for example, they say all forms of AK-47s and all forms of AR-15s, M16s, and M4s. What this does is it creates a classification of any firearm of that specific type is now going to be considered to be a so-called assault weapon. Now, after the list of makes and models that you find there in that first section, then the Washington bill goes on to do something similar to California as well. They then define specific firearms based on their characteristics, and they ban specific firearms based on what type of characteristics they have. First, they say any semi-automatic rifle that has an overall length of less than 30 inches is now an assault weapon and banned from future sales. This language is kind of your general ban on SBRs or any firearm that has a length of less than 30 inches. Again, this language is probably going to run contrary and kind of conflict really with the ATF's current actions as they are treating braced pistols as now SBRs. There's going to be that deadline with the amnesty with the ATF, that 120-day amnesty. So really what happens is it's going to even constrain the residents in the state of Washington. It's going to constrain that ATF deadline even more. Now you're really going to have to decide whether or not you want to adhere to the ATF's amnesty period, because your own state is going to put constraints, even further constraints, on your acquisition of SBRs. In the next portion of this bill, they talk about conversion kits and parts and combination of parts that are now going to be considered to be so-called assault weapons. Now, this is essentially where in the bill you start to see the state of Washington go even beyond what other states have done. And that's why I say this one is the worst one that we've seen in the nation. Under this language, even a combination of parts cannot be purchased, and your possession of these parts that could possibly be used to convert a firearm into a so-called assault weapon is now going to be essentially questionable. This section states that a conversion kit part or combination of parts from which an assault weapon can be assembled, or from which a firearm can be converted into an assault weapon if those parts are in the possession or under the control of the same person. So again, even parts, combinational parts, conversion kits on their own are defined as so-called assault weapons. This is important because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a bill which bans the future sale of so-called assault weapons. This bill defines parts and combination of parts as so-called assault weapons. Therefore, under the language of this bill, even the sale of parts that then could potentially be used to convert a firearm into a so-called assault weapon is an assault weapon in its own, and therefore the sale or the future sale of those items will become illegal. So again, very important to keep in mind that this is not just impacting firearms, but it's also impacting some parts. The next section of this bill talks about the characteristic ban, and it's a characteristic ban on a variety of items. The first one is a semi-automatic centerfire rifle with a detachable magazine and any of the one offending features. California, again, has similar restrictions, but the state of Washington learned from some of the end arounds that California gun owners came up with, like the fin grips, putting specific muzzle devices on specific configurations. So what the state of Washington did is they expanded their definition of characteristics so that even those firearms which are compliant in California would not be compliant in the state of Washington. For example, it states an offending feature is a grip that is independent or detached from the stock that protrudes conspicuously beneath the action of the weapon. The addition of a fin attaching the grip to the stock does not exempt the grip if it otherwise resembles the grip found on a pistol. So what this bill does is it even bans the use of fin grips. They also are banning any type of muzzle device. They state that a flash suppressor, flash guard, flash eliminator, flash hider, sound suppressor, silencer, or any item designed to reduce the visual or audio signature of the firearm, and also a muzzle brake, recoil compensator, or any item designed to be affixed to the barrel to reduce recoil or muzzle rise is also going to be an offending feature. Again, Washington looked at the compliant rifles in the state of California and expanded on the language that we have in California so that their law is even worse and encompasses even more types of rifles and configurations. They're also targeting any type of barrel that has threading on it. So if you could have some sort of threading on it and you could attach a flash hider, flash suppressor, a silencer, anything like that, that is also going to be an offending characteristic. Again, even broader than what the state of California has. Then there is also going to be a future ban on the sale of semi-automatic pistols that can accept a detachable magazine and has any feature like a threaded barrel, a barrel shroud, or the ability to accept a magazine outside of the pistol grip. It's also going to restrict shotguns in similar types of configurations with pistol grips, collapsible stocks, specific capacity restrictions as well are going to be in place. So again, very broad reaching and goes beyond what other states have already done. Your current possession and purchase of these types of items is still lawful, but I'm going to be honest, this is going to pass. It's going to become law in the state of Washington, and all indications are is that the governor is going to sign it. The governor is the one who called for this. The AG is the one who called for this. So this is going to get signed into law. And once it gets signed, it will go into effect immediately because there is an urgency clause attached to this bill. So that's why my recommendation is that if you're in the state of Washington, it's probably a good idea for you to look at purchasing these types of items. If you have any interest in these type of rifles, these types of configurations, any of these items, you should really look into purchasing right here now. Now, I don't always like to recommend that you go out and buy things in videos. I don't like to do that. I don't want people to rush out and go buy things. That's just not what I usually do. But with this specific bill, it's very urgent. It's very time sensitive. This is going to get signed into law, and then there's going to be a ban on all these types of configurations of rifles, pistols, shotguns, these types of items because of the way that this bill is written. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. As always, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.